Yes, an absolute massive name, a legend. Alex McLeish, how you doing, big man?
I'm good. I'm very good. Yes.
Good. Down in London in the big house.
I've got a clear head.
Oh, I must say, I love the couch. I love the picture. I love the decor. Whereabouts in the world are you right now?
Southwest London.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, nice little paint. A Glasgow artist.
Who?
Gerard Burns.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, Gerard Burns.
What a man. So what's that, Southwest London, Alec? What is that? So what sort of area is that? Is that Chelsea in that?
It's no Chelsea. It's over the bridge. We're over the bridge from Chelsea, you know, and yeah, Wandsworth. You heard of Wandsworth?
Yeah.
Wandsworth Common, you know. So,
lovely.
Yeah, nice area.
A long way from Glasgow. Where did you grow up, Alex?
I grew up. I was born in Duke Street Hospital in Glasgow.
No way.
Yeah, and we lived in kind of my mother and father. We lived with their in-laws at times, you know. My dad's mother and father, and then my mother's mother and father, and then they got their own little pad in Kinnan Park and near Ibrox.
Wow.
And when I was 5, I went to school for 2 or 3 days before my family, my dad and I got a house in Barhead.
Oof.
But it was a new scheme. It was a brand new scheme. So brand new houses, and we were all excited. And we moved to Barhead when I was 5.
For Barhead, things get worse. You go up to Aberdeen. How did that come about?
Well, you know, I was playing boys club football, and a few of my pals were getting S forms with Celtic, Rangers, other teams, and I thought, what am I doing wrong? So I thought, I'm not going to give up. I was really determined. My dad pushed me really hard. A lot of times nowadays I see kids getting frustrated and being told at the age of 10 and all that they'll never make it, which I think they've always got to say, you know, keep trying. There's always a level for you, and you make it better. And what happened to me between 15 and 17 is I took an enormous growth spurt, and all of a sudden I was getting offered trials left, right and centre. None from the Glasgow Giants, right enough, but certainly Chelsea, I was supposed to be going for a trial, and then Aberdeen just came after a cup final. We beat one of the teams in Paisley Racecourse, and Ali McLeod was at the game. He was Aberdeen manager at the time with the chief scout, and they said, "Can we come to your house next day? We'd like you to sign apprenticeship forms." So they asked my mum and dad's permission, and that's what happened. So then that was the start of 18-year career.
Wow. What would the young Alex McLeish get up to in Aberdeen? Were you up in Cadonas?
Oh, yes, of course. We were great friends with the Cadonas, you know, while he was married to one of the girls. And you know, the Cadona family were really very pleasant to all the players, and that always gave the players a little bit of attention when they turned up at the fairground. So, you know, the Cadonas, you know that very well.
Yeah, I know the Cadonas. I meant to say to you, what age did Willie get that handlebar?
Well, I think he had the handlebar when I arrived, so it must have been before 76.
Wow.
When I arrived. So Willie nurtured that for a few years, didn't he? You know, that was Che Guevara Miller.
No wonder he got a bird with a moustache like that at that age, eh?
I know, it did trendy, wasn't it?
Oh, man. Your playing career was known for the big role, Aberdeen's glory days under Sir Alex Ferguson. Was that team as good as any team in Europe, Alex?
Well, we took some lessons, you know. We had some beatings, you know, in the first 3 years or so when getting into Europe. I always remember in a German dressing room, I think it was one of the Eintracht teams, and Sir Alex, everybody was at the dressing room. I was last out but him, and I seen him walking about with his head down and really looking frustrated, you know, almost as if it was the last game he'd ever have, you know. But it just showed you how combative he was and how much it hurt him to lose, because he felt we could do something even that and at that early stage. But it was lessons, and I always kind of remember saying, "Come on, boss, we're going to be better because of this," And so all of a sudden, in the next couple of years, we took a hell of a beating from Liverpool in the Champions League, and which was then the European Cup. They beat us at Tawdry 1-0, then 4-0 at Anfield. We hung on for a while at Anfield, and then the flood came after with 2 minutes to go before half time. They scored twice, and that was us burst, But again, it was a great learning curve, and we had great players in the team. And then Peter Weir came into the team, a colleague of mine from Barhead High School. Peter and I played at primary school and at Barhead High School, and Peter was just an exceptional talent. Nowadays, he would be worth an absolute fortune. And Peter came in and made us a better team as well, and culminating in winning the European Cup, Winners' Cup.
Were you Fergie's favourite, Alec?
I don't know if it was his favourite.
I bet you were.
But the amount of times he shouted at defenders was probably less than he did with the creative players. Willie was probably 5 times in my whole career there, and I'd maybe be 8 or 9 or something. But he had to go at the creative ones all the time. The Strachan's, the McGee's, the guys who scored the goals, and they guys, they hit back as well because they were strong characters. It was a really strong dressing room we had, and we worked really well with Sir Alex in the end in terms of winning trophies and stuff. And of course, he famously shouted us down after winning the Scottish Cup, and that was I think 8 days after the Gothenburg final, when I think he thought we should beat Rangers in a canter and put on a great display. The boys were knackered, and we got a 1-0. We scraped a 1-0 victory in the Scottish Cup final. But next day he said he realised he'd been too harsh on us, So yeah, he was a good man manager.
I spoke to James McFadden this morning. He said you've got some great Alex Ferguson stories. Have you got a favourite one?
Oh God, there's hundreds. They used when in the cup final, when after the European Cup, that was the Winners' Cup. I was in the showers feeling sorry for myself at the end of the game because I'd actually had an assist in the game, but also with the penalty, we a pass back that stuck in the water, and Jim, the guy nipped in, and took it round Jim Layton, and Jim had to pull him down. Penalty, goal, equaliser, and I always remember sneaking in at the back of the teammates, trying to avoid Fergie's wrath. But he shouted, "Ali, what the blooming hell were you thinking?" And there was a few more colourful words than that with that pass back, and I said, and I reacted back, probably harder than ever I did before, and then Archie Knox came in between us and said, "We need to come on. We've got a cup final to win here," and Sir Alex, he'd kind of realised, right, second half, and at the end of the game, I was still delaying my come back into the dressing room, kind of thinking, what how could I have avoided that? I always analyse my own performance, and I was thinking more of that than getting into that dressing room and drinking champagne and celebrating with the rest of the boys having just won a major European trophy, and culminating and making us probably that season the best team in Europe. When Sir Alex came in to the shower area, and I can always remember just looking down as he was talking to me, and he says, "Listen, proud of you did really well. A lot of players would have crumbled, dug a hole for themselves, and of course I would have had to have taken you off, but you stuck to it, and you never put a foot wrong in the second half, and might have hampered you. There was great mentality." And I was just thinking, looking down at the floor, I was watching his shoes were getting deluged by the shower. The bottom of his shoes and the bottom of his trousers were soaking walking back into the dressing room. But no, we done hundreds of stories, and you know, there was a great cricket story at Gordonston. Where we trained. The royal family, I think, were students at Gordonston at one stage, or some of them were. And it's up north in Scotland. And he said, we're going to take you to Gordonston for a boot camp. And we'll be training really hard, morning, afternoon, and we'll get some off time as well. But we're thinking we're in the middle of nowhere, up kind of near Inverness and all that. And they don't see us getting any free time. So he decided next day, and him and the games master were very friendly people, very friendly together. He came to a lot of our games, and he said to the games master, I want to have a game of cricket tomorrow. Can you kit them out in all the whites and stuff, you know, because there was a big cricket pitch there. And he says, you're not training anymore, we're playing cricket. And, and you know, half of them going like that, cricket? Oh, I don't like cricket. But fortunately, a few of us did. You know, Stuart Kennedy really loved it, and myself, I followed the international stuff. And then when it came to the opening batsmen, the two biggest kind of egos in the club had to go bat first, and that was Willie and the gaffer. And so the first couple of bowls, Stevie Cowan's bowling against Sir Alex. And he just bats them away and he says, I'm going to be in here all day like Jeffrey Boycott. And then Stevie had a kind of curveball and he kind of papped it and Stevie caught and bowled him. And the gaffer, he stood still, he says, oh, yeah. And he ended up throwing the bat at Stevie and telling him, you start running on that cricket pitch. So we get back into the dinner hall and we're eating our dinner. Everybody's eating, and Archie knocks threw down his fork and knife and slammed it, and everybody's like, "What's happened?" He says, "Stevie Cowan's still out there running." That was about an hour and a half later. Stevie comes in. I say, Stevie, that was awful, the gaffer forgetting about you there. He says, it was worth every lap.
If that's me, by the way, I'm dropping that ball and I'm leaving him on the bat, 100%.
You'd have to be butterfly and just let him bat on. But that was brilliant.
Alex, I'm delighted I've got you on. So the big question I want to know about Aberdeen in their days is, who used to put the Vaseline on Jim Leighton's eyebrows?
I think, I don't know. I didn't really notice that he had a makeup artist. I thought
by some of his performances he was putting them on with his own gloves.
Well, some of it would always dripping down below his eyes, but it must have been the physio or something like that. I can't really remember. I don't think he'd have administered it himself, you know. Yeah.
I need to ask you as well, Gordon Strachan was my manager at Celtic. And he could be so sharp at 50 odd back then when he was the manager. I just want to know what he was like as a young guy. How quick were his replies, and would he give them to Ferguson as well?
Maybe not so much to the boss, but he was brilliant. He really, really funny in the dressing room. Gordon. They say sarcasm is the lowest form of wit, but the highest form of intelligence. And that's true. Gordon is a very intelligent man, but some of his quick lines were tremendous. You know, he did plagiarise a few. He did copy some people. Martin Buchan's famous one. What was it? Give me something to do with fast, and he said velocity. Yeah. But I think Martin Buchan famously said that to Ron Atkinson. So the wee man nicked that one there, but there's nothing wrong with that. He made up a lot of them himself, and he's a bit of a legend in terms of his banter, and also obviously he was a fantastic footballer and manager.
Because what is it he says? He says that you and him used to fight for the spot cream. I've heard him saying that before.
Aye, probably, yeah. Yeah, I remember the days when we were young boys growing up with acne and problems and stuff, you know, and we always had a wee tub of whatever at that time particular that helped us to improve our for lovely skin.
And now you're looking tremendous, mate. I need to ask you as well, Neil Cooper, how much of a character was he? How funny could he be?
He was just second to none. And, you know, it's funny, a lot of people, that when I first introduced them to Neil, you know, maybe we met somebody in Glasgow for the first time, or if we were out, you know, for food and a glass of wine with the girls up in Aberdeen, then people would kind of say to me, I'm not sure about him, he seems a jack of lad and all that stuff, you know, and you know, a bit too happy, laughing all the time. And it's because he loves life, the big fella. He's a tremendous character, and come and say hello to him. And then they at the end of the conversation, they walked away saying, he is a brilliant guy. Yeah. You know, everybody had that impression about Neil, and at first sight, and you know what they see his antics a wee bit, you know. But they realised he was just, and it was like that since the day I walked into Pittodrie. I think he was about 14 when I arrived. I was 17 or something. Might have been a bigger difference. Can't remember exactly ages. But Neil was in the car park across from Pittodrie, Ash Park, and there was football, tennis net set up, and he was playing. You know, a young guy. He's really honed. He's lovely build and beautiful blonde hair, and he's competing with all these older guys, you know. And then somebody, I said, who's the other ones? He says, the first team players and stuff, you know. He says, that kid's only 14. He said, we think he's going to be a superstar. And looking at Neil, he's giving it the close control and getting it back over, or scrambling for one that you would think he'll never get that. And I'm going, what? That boy looks like an absolute superstar. And of course, the curly hair, handsome boy and that, and you know, young Neil came on to be more of a midfield kind of enforcer, you know, but also with the driving skills and getting forward and scoring goals. You know, I think his goal was to be like a Franz Beckenbauer sweeper, and there was a lot of people kind of tipped him for that kind of superstardom. But the problem was that we had a brilliant partnership, Willie Miller and myself, and then sometimes when Willie wasn't playing or I wasn't playing, the two, Neil would pair up with either of us. Yeah. And Sir Alex, and we never really lost any momentum. But a super guy, and sad to lose him just a few years ago there. And he was the youngest of the Gothenburg group, but you know, just an amazing character.
Would he wind Fergie up?
Yeah, but I don't think he would do it deliberately. I think it was just his kind of happy-go-lucky manner. You know, like him and Big Brian Gunn did the old lemon in the hair or something, and they ended up like blondies, you know. And it would, you know, Sir Alex was like a father to all the boys, you know. And it was, what are you doing with that hair? You know, it wasn't like you know, you need to improve on your left foot, or you need to, what are you doing with that hair? And what are you wearing these socks for? You know, and they two kind of, Brian Gunn and Big Ben, they kind of rubbed the gaffer up the wrong way sometimes, you know. And him and Archie were obviously a team, and they would frequently be chasing them down the corridor with baseball bat, you know, in a friendly terms. It wouldn't actually happen with it, but
Archie was my Scotland under-19 manager as well. What a guy! See, between him and Ferguson, how can you remember like one incident where the both of them were just ruthless?
They were absolutely ruthless when they played a game called Tips in the gym.
Right.
We did gym, and it was a wee square thing, and it had 4 pillars, you know, coming down from the ceiling into the floor. So you had to kind of play round about them, and they had foam padding round about it so none of the players would crash into them. was used as a weights room at times, but we used it for this game called Tips, where you only had like one touch. And there was 4 corners, and so there was started off with 4 participants, and you get 3 lives. And so sometimes there was setups, and you'd take your one touch and pass it square so somebody could just slam it and some get them out of the game,
Yeah.
And it was really ruthless and cutthroat, but it was an absolute. Everybody was so desperate to play it every time, every day after training. But the 2 main contestants were Archie and Sir Alex, and they just went in and did the head-to-heads. And every Friday when they did that, they were looking for some of the young boys. At a certain moment after lunch, the young boys all scattered because they didn't want to be the referee of Archie and Sir Alex's Tips game. And you would actually have. I've never seen them run faster. They didn't even do that in the pitch, and they're all scattering everywhere. And Noxie would be going down the corridor shouting on "Kipper," or one of the other young boys' names. Get out of here now! I want you within 5 minutes, or you're no playing on Saturday. And it was stuff like that, and ended up with one of the young apprentice boys and stuff, so scared stiff to give a decision against either or the other. And as they went in and they got the warning, and that log hole for Sir Alex and that log hole for Archie, when they didn't see each other, when they weren't together, so they were doing it in secret, saying, "You better be a good referee today." And Sir Alex would say the same thing. You better be a good referee, or you'll never make it at this club.
That's terrible.
It was obviously tongue-in-cheek stuff, but those battles between Archie and Sir Alex in that Tips game in that wee gym were legendary. The 2 of them came out cussing and swearing. If one lost, obviously there was cussing and swearing, and the 2 of them had sweating all over, and what was big epic games.
2 winners. Talking of big epic games, Alec, Real Madrid in the final 1983. How was the nerves going into that game, and how did Fergie make you feel that you could compete with these sort of teams?
We went 2 nights before to Sweden, and we had a quiz night, the first night or something like that, or it may have been the night before the game. And Sir Alex was the quiz master, and he always had wee tricky ones in there, and what was the team with the longest name in Scotland. And, somebody comes out with Hamilton Academicals, I've got it. No, Hamilton Academical. It's got an S in the end. That would have, no, that's absolute rubbish, So, and then you realise, quiz shows work to the very fine detail that he implicated that night. But it took the edge, off as everybody was getting cabin fever a wee bit. Normally we'd just stay for one night before. But they got us relaxed. I had a wee bit of a sore back. I was getting treatment before the cup final. 2 weeks before, I got an injury against Hibs, I think, and no, that was another. That was my knee injury, but a back injury. That's what I was doing. I was picking up paving stones for my back garden instead of rolling them. Somebody said to me, "You're supposed to roll them, you buffoon," and I ended up with a stiffness in my back, and Roland Arnott, our physio, was working on the clock, trying to get me ready for this. And the night before the Gothenburg game, I had to put my mattress on the floor because I just couldn't sleep in the bed, and it had to be something really rigid below the mattress. And I got the injections in my back before the game, and unfortunately everything worked out well. But I'd been struggling for about 2 weeks with it, and that was just a wee aside story. But he did. Him and Archie did their level best to keep us all grounded. We had pretty, quite a lot of confidence after beating Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals, and then disposing of the Belgians in the semi-final, and to be against Real Madrid, obviously another massive name. Can we do it? We did it once to Bayern Munich. A lot of people doubted they'll not be able to do it twice. But Sir Alex played the ace cards and things. He got the early introduction to their manager, and he handed over the bottle of whiskey, and the guy I think was taken aback, and he kind of thought, oh well, I'm not going to be as animalistic in the press as I was going to be. Maybe it just calmed him down a wee bit.
Amazing.
So we went into the game, and it was bucketing down the whole day, and it was absolutely. We thought we were worried that it may be called off because those puddles, and that's when we were doing the warm up, and I always went out longer for my warm up. I like to get good stretching, and it was way before the days when everybody gets out together, as they do now. And I was kicking the ball, a couple of balls, and noticed they were sticking. And I said to the players in the dressing room, guys, we need to kind of give it a little chip, for it to find its target, because it's sticking everywhere. The harder you kick it, the more that it will stick in the grass. And so I was a victim of my own, guidance to the guys when I had a pass back in the game. And normally, 99 times out of 100, it would have been an easy pick-up for Jim Leighton. But obviously this one, and it's just instinctive. You don't think you don't get the time to think within a split second. Oh, my brain process a better chip it, unless you've been practicing that for maybe a week or something. And so it stuck in the water, penalty, and that was the equaliser after a nodded one on for Eric Black to score the opener. So half time we had the wee kind of set two, then everybody calmed down. Second half, when I look back in the game, we absolutely battered Real Madrid. It was a great performance, and to think a small provincial club would be able to go and do that to a European giant, it's not going to. I don't think I'll ever see it again.
Yeah, were you not worried when you're telling everyone to chip the ball that it would go over Gordon Strachan's head all the time?
Yeah, well, the one he was in the puddle. He was even smaller than he normally would be.
What a team! Just last bit on Aberdeen. Did Fergie ever attempt to take you to Man United?
He did. There was an agreement when he left that he wouldn't come back for me or Willie. And I don't know if Jim Leighton was involved in that agreement, but I never knew about the agreement. I don't think Willie or myself would have been too happy with that. No. And then Sir Alex, he called me one night and he says, all bets are off. I'm going to come for you. They went for Joe Miller. Joe Miller was at Celtic at the time. Sorry, was at Aberdeen at the time. And Sir Alex said, if ever wee Joe's up for grabs, give me a shout, because he liked him, And at that time, it might have worked for Joe to go to Man United. But Celtic came in with a hard offer for Aberdeen, and the Dons just signed him to Celtic without, giving a nod to Alex Ferguson. And he says, all bets are off. I'm going to come for you. I'm going to make a bid. And so I went to see Porterfield, the manager, and he says, well, look, I think it'd be great for you and your family. He said, but I don't want to lose you. But it's not up to me. It's up to the directors. and they kept doing the asking price, moving up a wee bit, and I don't know what I'd have been. I might have been 28, 29 then, and so obviously getting a wee bit towards the end, and I think it were up to 1.75 million, and
wow,
and that at that time was quite a lot. Nowadays, that's
I'm worth 1.3 million nowadays.
That's you signing the Diddy, isn't it?
Yeah, me.
And he came back and says, Alex, look, I just can't do it. So he obviously had other targets as well that he was thinking about, but obviously I would have cost maybe a wee bit less. But 2 weeks later, he bought Gary Pallister for 2 million from Middlesbrough, and the rest is history. So I missed my chance. And in those days, listen, I can't turn back and say, rewind the clock and say I regret no going, but I'll always wonder. There was opportunities at the end of my contract to go to Spurs and things like that. But in those days, you, even when your contract was finished, you couldn't walk out. There was still a fee attached to you. Clubs still had a hold, and they still had the ability to recoup some money and put a big fee on your head. So it was different days from the Bosman era that we came into as well.
Yeah. Just lastly, Alec, you won 3 league titles, 5 Scottish Cups, 2 League Cups, and a European Cup. Was that winning mentality was that the main thing that you took into management from Aberdeen? Yeah,
and you don't want to. Everybody would love to be Alex Ferguson, but you don't want to copy your manager. If you copy him to perfection, then yes.
Yeah.
But because when I got my first job at Motherwell, as player manager, and then after 5 games, undefeated, I must say, I decided not to be player manager anymore. I just went in the dugout. John Phillippen was around then, and he was playing extremely well. And I thought, I'm keeping this guy out of the team, so he should be in it. He's younger than me. He's got better legs at this stage of my career, and that's what happened. And my first few weeks with the Motherwell team, we were training in Holland. We were at one of these great football camps that the Dutch seem to pioneer very early doors.
Yeah.
And stomach was churning in my wee room myself, thinking I'm going into this management straight into it without having the opportunity to maybe work with a senior coach and kind of learn the ropes. I've plunged straight into it, but I knew I'd inherited a good bunch of players, and I tried to get them playing as freely as they could. They were third in the Premier League the year before, behind Rangers and Celtic, and we ended up second that season. Yeah. But at that training camp, at half time, I thought, players are just look to get their fitness, so you should never any way you should ever go at them. But I thought, I wonder if I should do a Fergie on them, half time. And so I went in, and I remember Chris McCart saying this to me years later. He says, remember the first time? He says, you come in and you started ranting at us. We were all kind of, I thought he's trying to be Alex Ferguson, So when I went back in my room actually that day, I actually said, I didn't feel that, I didn't feel it. And I thought, I'll try to copy the boss. I'm not going to do it. I'm just got to do what I feel. And empowered the players, Tommy Coyne and all these guys. I gave them a lot of respect and freedom and on the pitch. And they had a brilliant season, ended up second after.
Who were the top players in that team, Alec? Was it Tommy Coyne, Paul Lambert?
Paul Lambert was there, and the season afterward, that's when Bosman came in. Paul left, Rab McKinnon left. You remember Rab?
Yeah, left footer.
Yeah, superb. Yeah. We had a great back five, when you consider the wing backs and Rab Shannon on the other side. But, they were two fantastic players that went away in Bosman's. Chris McCart, the centre half, but Chris's knees were kind of short, and I think that was his last season. Tommy Coyne also was knackered. Tommy ended up the top scorer in Scotland in my first season. Yeah. With big buff Brian, big Brian, the centre back who was linked with Rangers and Celtic every season. Big Buff, his nickname was, and then Miodrag
Kapovic, that's right.
Miodrag as well. We did a lot of really good players. Dougie Arnott,
yeah.
He was a handful. I always found him a really tough opponent. When you consider played against a lot of top players, Romario and Michael Laudrup, and Dougie Arnott. Dougie Arnott was one of the toughest.
Was he? Yeah.
Well, he just did that.
Busy.
He would kind of run under your legs and things like that. Nick the ball by and turn, and good on the turn, and Tony Cotty type player. But it was a great bunch of players we had.
Alex, we had Paul Lambert on here. Do you know the story?
In goal, Stevie Woods.
He was hopeless. So Stevie Woods, he was hopeless. And you needed a good back five if Stevie Woods was in goals.
Will you tell him
that? We had Paul Lambert on here. Do you know the story about him going to Dortmund? I think his wife lied to you and told you that he was ill. Is that right?
Yeah. And listen, it's all is fair in love and war, and I think Paul thought I shouted at his wife. I think he said in his book that I shouted at his wife down the line or something. I says, Paul, that's no my nature. I would never have done that to your wife. And then he can apologise for putting it in his book, and
right.
He probably had to do it for effect or something like that. But I did phone Paul's wife and I says, can I get a word with Paul? He's in the house. No, he's not here at the moment. He's out with the kids or something,
Right.
I'd already had word that he was touring Holland and Germany. Paul went away. I think he trialled with Dick Advocat.
Yeah, that's right. Who told you that he was away? Can you remember?
I can't remember.
No.
Maybe a press man or something.
Yeah.
I think Gordon Smith might have been his agent at that time. I'm pretty close to Gordon, but even he wouldn't have phoned me on that one.
Yeah.
But listen, for him to go away and do that then showed a lot of courage, because there was contracts waiting for him, and there might have been something else with the two big clubs as well, Rangers and Celtic, but it would have been different. I don't know if it would have been different rules. They might have had to still pay money because it was just the first time in Scotland. But he went away, trialled at Eindhoven, was it? PSV?
Eindhoven, yeah, that's right.
And then, he had a successful one with Dortmund, and the rest is history, and the boys done really well. But he was one of our top quality players in the team, with a lot of technical ability. And then in Dortmund made him into one of these, which is now pretty prevalent in all the biggest teams, a holding midfielder.
Oh, yeah.
And Celtic used him to that effect as well when they re-signed him. So he was marvellous in that role.
But did you think he could play at that sort of level? Were you quite surprised that he went and done so well?
Well, I could see it because, when it happened, when he did so well and he stayed in the team so long, and we kept saying, how's he not at the team yet? And because there's far better technicians in there, and that was actually the crux of it, because they turned him into he was far and away one of the best creative players in Scotland.
Yeah,
but you see the difference between the top Scottish creative players and the top German creative players. It was quite a poles apart. And the way they converted him into that player, so that was a player who was technically very good. So for him to play that holding role and to learn the defensive aspects of that, and to be a limpet to, you know, against Zidane or something like that in the final, then, you know, that added a whole new dimension to his game. And they knew that if he got the ball in a tight situation and he was playing in that defensive midfield position, then he was able to handle that. Yeah. It was just that he was one of our most creative players in Motherwell, but he wasn't the most creative player at Dortmund. Far from it. But he turned into, you know, an international class star, superstar.
Then you went to Hibs, Alec, and they were relegation rivals, February 1998. How did that move come about?
I don't know. Hibs, I think, actually, yeah, I think the story was that they fancied Paul Sturrock.
Don't all fancy Paul Sturrock.
I think they'd eventually gone for, or initially had gone for Paul. And now, if I can think back to the chairman and that there, and it was, well, I think Paul knocked it back, and then they came for me.
Talking about recruitment, you managed to secure some amazing signings. The European Cup winner Frank Sauzée. How did you manage to get Frank Sauzée at Hibs?
Well, an agent phoned me, and he always used to say, his first lines were always, "I've got a cracking player for you." and I says, "Oh no, all right, come on, you know, you're serious." And when he said the name Frank Sauzée, he said, "Have you heard a player called Frank Sauzée?" And I says, "Hi, Frank, he's won the European Cup with Marseille, and I've played against him for Scotland against France a couple of times." And I thought, "You're kidding, is he available?" And he said, "Yeah, he could come on a free transfer. You just have to pay the wages, you know, maybe a wee bit more than your top earners are getting." And, you know, we looked at it. I looked at it with Rod Petrie, and Rod was head of Hibs at the time, and he endorsed it. And I said, "This guy's a wonderful footballer." I did start with Frank in midfield, and I could see it. Obviously, he was 33 or 32 or something. Might have been 32, and I could see that maybe the midfield was going to be too
quick for him.
Too quick, because Celtic were a top team. Rangers were a top team at the time, and there was a lot of, you know, other good teams in the league. It was a much stronger league at that time.
Yeah.
And then I came up with the Motherwell master plan, and with the three at the back. And I played Frank as the middle man and the three at the back, and he was absolutely top class. You know,
he was Beckenbauer at that time in Scotland.
He could put a ball on a 50-pence piece with a 50-yard pass. That was his accuracy, 2-footed, a great change of feet. He still, you know, in 5 metres, it was tough for him against guys like Henrik Larsson and you know, people like that. But everybody, by and large, handled everybody the whole season with two good centre-halves beside him. And Frank is obviously legendary now in the Hibs folklore.
What kind of guy is he?
Brilliant guy. And it's good timing that you should ask that, because back in March there, just before lockdown, my wife and I, we travelled to Provence.
Wow, love it.
To stay with Frank. So we're still in touch with him. You know, beautiful, lovely family, his wife, and they have a nice house in the countryside. And he's still working media, and they have business as well. And, you know, they're two entrepreneurs as well. And we had such a wonderful weekend with Frank, and all the old memories. And he started bringing up games, you know, playing against Hearts in New Year, and he drilled one in from the edge of the box in a well-rehearsed corner. Just a dream of a player, a dream of a man, in terms of his personality and his friendship, but also what he was some player. He was some player.
Yeah, amazing stories. Latapy, need to ask you, your first introduction to managing Russell Latapy, how much a challenge was it? One, to stop him from smoking, and two, for keeping him at the pubs?
Well, I mean, I've got to give Russell a hell of a lot of credit, because I phoned, again, it was an agent, said, Russell Latapy, you heard of him? And I says, I know the name. He played in Portugal somewhere, and he was with Bobby Robson. And so I phoned Sir Bobby and asked him about him. And he says, beautiful little player, and that's my Geordie accent.
Yeah, I like it. It was decent.
Right, he said, beautiful, but he likes to have a bit of fun. he says, but I think he'll smash it, in Scotland. And Bobby obviously thinking, Scotland's not as competitive as England. Of course, he's correct, but there are still some big challenges for us to play against Rangers and Celtic and the Aberdeens of this world, and the Edinburgh guys. They were all top kind of players at round about that time, and hopefully we can get back to those levels. Soon. There's some signs of some of that happening in recent times. But he came and he volunteered to. I said to him, look, would you play a trial game for us? See, I just want to be sure, and that you've got the legs. And I think he was near 29, 30 or something. I don't know what age he was at the time. So we played a friendly up at Brecon, I think it was.
Oh,
yeah, and and I was amazed that he said yes. And yeah, it was pelting rain. It was exactly not the Caribbean weather that he was like. And this wee guy ploughed through the pitch like, he was dancing above it. It's almost like he was on a hoverboard above the grass, and he was sensational. And it was a no-brainer. And I actually was looking in the stand to see if there was anybody there.
Yeah, scouts.
Aye, I was so afraid that I was going to lose him in that 24 hours.
Were you not worried that he was going to sign for Brecon?
Yeah, I was. Dick Campbell probably was the coach then. And Big Dick might have stolen him. But no, he was. He just strolled it, and he hovered across the ground while everybody were phoning their backside and mispassing and miscontrolling. Russell was supreme, and we signed him next day. So we had Frank Sauzée on board, Russell Latapy, and we also got Patalainen, who were three players who really transformed the team. And you have to give credit to the whole squad, of course. Guys like John O'Neill were there, brilliant players.
John O'Neill, good player.
But when you see that Spurs lost Gareth Bale or they didn't lose him, they get 70 or 80 million for him, I can't remember. And then they bring in 6 or 7 players and they go, oh wow, we brought in a bunch of great players to augment Gareth leaving.
Yeah.
But then you see those 6 players don't gel right away. They're 4 or 5 of them end up leaving the club after a year or two. That's the difference that one guy or 2 guys or 3 guys can make. We had 3 international players there in that Hibs team.
Yeah.
By getting those 3 players, and we absolutely romped the league, and then had a fantastic, I think, 3rd place in the Premier League the next year.
Can you remember any instances where you caught Russell being out maybe when he shouldn't have been? Or did you just have to let him get on with it because that was his character?
Oh no, there was plenty of incidents when he was out, yeah. And we were in Trinidad and Tobago. We went there kind of where the I think Rod maybe saw it as a wee kind of commercial one as well.
Yeah.
And Russell was so excited at going back to his homeland, and we would play a friendly or two and train over there, a winter break kind of thing. And I told the players there was a curfew at a certain, you had to come in at a certain time, and Russell, he probably wasn't the only one, but he was the one that got caught, and he broke curfew, and I said to the next day, Russell, you're getting fined, and he said, come on, Gaffer, I'm back in the home ground, and you show a bit of lenience saying that, and then I heard that Brian Lara was one of his best pals. I like cricket, and
yeah.
I says, well, if you bring Brian Lara in for lunch, I'll let you away, He brought Brian Lara into the hotel and stuff, and the boys all said hello to him and stuff. So he was amongst his own pals.
Yeah, amazing. Would you have a fag at training and stuff like that, Alex?
He's a very likeable little guy. Just at half time, just at half time, when he came into the dressing room, he had five or six,
Love that. Somebody at Joe says
no chance. But there was I'd seen one or two players over the years that, especially foreign players. Alex Ferguson said this about Barthez, that when the Sun printed a picture of him standing outside a nightclub having a fag, and Alex Ferguson rounded on the journalists who phoned him and said, look, a lot of the foreign guys smoke a fag now and again. He says, but what they don't do is the British culture drink. They don't drink, He says he doesn't. He's not a bevier. He likes a cigarette now and again, and that was the gaffer making the difference between Europeans or
the British
players and the British culture was guys that take a lot of footballers like a drink.
Yeah.
And have done over the years. Maybe it's got a wee bit better, but you still see some incidents, don't you?
Yeah. The guy that told us about Russell and the smoking was another character who we've had on, John Hughes. What's your memories of John Hughes?
Yeah, John was just a great character, a fantastic character, and one of the pranksters in the dressing room as well. He would have his cronies, and who
were his cronies?
Well, Mickey Weir, all these guys, the Edinburgh Mafia.
Yeah.
and I think I can't remember whose trainers it was, whose boots it was, but he nailed them to the floor. And the player was trying. He went to lift his boots and he nearly wrenched his arm off. Yogi had nailed his boots to the ground. I think it was Dirk.
It was Dirk. You're right. He told that.
Dirk Lemon.
That's right.
And he was the victim that day.
Right.
But John was a big rouser, and the great irony about him, he wasn't the most beautiful footballer on earth, but he loved his teams to play pure football.
Yeah.
And that's a feature of his managerial career. Him and John Collins seemed to team together, and they always liked to pass the ball.
I need to ask you as well, because we spoke about recruitment. You also managed to find not just big names, but some hidden gems. Paul Hartley, Didier Regat. How did you spot these guys?
Well, Paul had been struggling a wee bit, in his previous. There was kind of big fanfare saying, the new Maranello and all that kind of stuff. And Paul was a top winger. And then, when I think his story kind of turns out to be a great one when he get put back into the holding midfielder role, and that we famously had him that night in Paris. When James McFadden scored the winning goal, and Paul played in that holding role that he did so well for Celtic. So it was an incredible transformation of a player, and he probably underachieved a wee bit, in terms of the winger role that he was kind of born into, and that he probably played throughout his boys' club days. But it seemed that the holding role was made for him, and again, it's a hell of a transformation, similar to Paul Lambert's. Although Lambert was more of a midfield player, always a midfield player, Paul was seen as more of a winger. Who was that one?
Didier Ragat.
Didier.
Was it Wraith Rovers you got Didier Ragat?
Yeah. Didier was, pure lightning. You seen the speed of this guy was, from even in the short distance, it just rocket material. As soon as Didier turned the afterburners on in the trial, then got to have him. And then there was a wee fight between. No, there wasn't a fight between Rangers and Celtic, but both Martin O'Neill and Dick Advocaat phoned me about Didier, and I was hoping that because we're smaller than the old firm, we were looking to try and recoup something out of it, and but his contract was coming up for grabs, and I think we did get something from Celtic, but it was quite a small fee. But he was tremendous in his short stay with us, and that's what attracted the old firm to him, and he did a really good job for Martin when Martin played the three at the back.
Talking of rocket material, Kenny Miller, rocket material for a different way. He came through the youth system. Can you remember seeing him for the first time?
I saw Kenny in very early days, and I thought, it wasn't just his speed, but he had a kind of demeanour about him that you thought this guy was going to definitely make it, and this guy had you could see in his makeup that he knew he was going to make it as well.
Yeah,
nothing was going to stop him, and when bringing Kenny into the team and he scored a goal in one of the, I don't know if it was the debut game, but he scored very early, and he scored against Hearts when we won at Tynecastle. Frank Sauzée, I think, scored that day as well. And again, we kind of knew that Kenny was going to be a bit of a goldmine for Hibs as well. In terms of if a big club came in from, then we should get a really good fee for him. And of course, when Rangers came in, I was abroad in Dubai at the time, and I had a conference call with Rod and the board of directors, and they said Rangers have come to $2.5 million or something. I can't remember what the actual final fee was, but I said, look, see if you can squeeze something else. And then I think it was $3 million. And the Hibs, we all sat together again and said, I think we've gone as far as, or they've gone as far as they will go, and we might lose it. And we knew that, Kenny was keen to go as well, and so holding back a young, we would love to have held him back and get more money, but we kind of, these guys weren't mortgage, the guys on the board, and they knew that was the kind of figure that
you were going to get. You were flying at Hibs, Alex. Third in the league, you ended up finishing, and then Rangers come. When were you first approached by Rangers?
Well, David Murray said that he'd spoken to Hibs, and when he picked the phone up, and he said, I bet you didn't think you'd get this call. And I said, well, I didn't actually. I thought you were down the road now where you would just go for foreign coaches, and that was the kind of level that you were looking at. And he said, no, Dick Advocaat really likes you, really talks a lot of you. He said you came to see him when he was at PSV Eindhoven. You came and paid a visit, and you asked for his permission to come, and he really liked you, and he's been watching your progress in Scotland, and you've done so well with Hibs, and the offer's there if you want to take the challenge. And of course, I was never going to say no to that one.
Was he, when you were doing well at Hibs, was it always the Rangers job you had in mind, Alex?
I never really, no. I never had. I thought actually my career path would be, if I did well at Hibs, the next stop would be England.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, maybe Championship, work up to Premiership, or possibly a Premiership mid-table. Try and get no put too much pressure on that you've got to try and keep somebody from being relegated and all that all the time. But you can't really map out a career path. But that's what I said to David. I didn't think you were going to come for any the Scottish coaches. I thought you'd either go for a top English coach or maybe a foreign European like you did with Dick. So I knew that after a couple of years of working at Rangers, I knew looking back then maybe they were starting to look at the way the financial situation was going on.
Yeah.
And I had to, I don't think I got it just because of that, but I genuinely think I had a good relationship with Dick Advocaat, and having gone to see Dick's training and listening to him chat with him for a couple of hours. I'd signed a player for Motherwell at that time, Mikel van der Gag, centre back.
Yeah.
Back in the day, he was at Eindhoven. He wasn't going to make it with the first team there, and he decided that he would come to Motherwell, and he played for us for a couple of years. He went on to be a coach. He played in Portugal and was a coach of one of the teams in Portugal. So Mitchell van der Gag it was, not Michel. And Dick had always said that, yes, I recommended you to David, and I said I can't take any more. I'm going to step down, and I think he'd had his fill of Mark McNeil came in and Celtic started to dominate a wee bit.
So Mitchell van der Gag got you the Rangers job. What a man! It must have been a proud day signing to be the Rangers manager, Alex.
It was amazing.
Where do you go to sign Ibrox?
He kind of overawed. You don't want to appear overawed, but Ibrox signed there. Yeah, signed at Ibrox. How did it pan out now? I think I'd gone down with my wife. We drove down to Glasgow. I drove through to Glasgow. I was still living in Edinburgh at the time, and we drove through for the meeting. And then when I was unveiled, I think some of my family were getting called and said, "Is that true? We're hearing that Alex joining Rangers tomorrow." So it was quite an exciting time. And the thing that's uppermost in your mind is, am I good enough to do this job? And it's because it's some task, and I'm getting in amongst world class players that are in that dressing room. Can I handle them? Can I get the best out of them? And that was that part, and that part was saying, yeah, of course you can. And that was the positive part that won the day. And I went in there. And I was even questioned by the press saying, could you say anything about the underwhelming welcome you got, big man? Some of the punters must be saying, how are we not getting Guardiola or something? I know he wasn't around then, but a manager of that type. And then I says, listen, it's up to me to make the fans, prove to the fans that I'm the right man for the job. And then we had a very early victory against Celtic in the semi-finals of the League Cup when Bert Konteman hit a 30-yarder. And that kind of cemented my attachment to the Rangers fans and also to Rangers Football Club. Mm. it doesn't do you too much harm when you get a win over the old rivals.
Yeah. What was the main things that you felt you had to change when you first went in that?
Well, what I felt was when I watched Rangers obviously we study them every week because I'm at Hibs and I have to look at other teams and keep abreast of all the action every weekend. But then I took some videos and watched the games, and I thought they played very slowly. Although they had fast players in the team, it was more quicker at the end to try and. But that team, by that time, teams had organised with men at the back, and it was very difficult for. They were trying to walk it in the net, basically.
Yeah.
And I felt that I had to. I said that to them. I said that's what I felt. And I said, you could pass it forward quicker. I'm not saying long ball stuff because we've got the quality and the technique to receive the ball in pockets and, between the lines, effectively. We called it pockets at that time. Now you've got play between the lines,
Yeah. Load of rubbish.
Yeah, everybody's got to use the jargon nowadays. But we said, play between the lines. Ronald, you can come off. You know how to get in space, and it's all about exploiting the space, but we've got to play quicker and we must get forward quicker. We've got to try and get forward quicker and get behind people when they're advancing. Not so much counter-attack, but just playing the game quicker. And to be honest, that was always a trait of Alex Ferguson's. He always wanted us to pass the ball assertively, quickly, and try and, get it forward rather than square passes all the time. Trying to draw teams out and then find a wee chink in the armour and get through that way. But no, we speeded it up. I kind of empowered the players a wee bit. I got into their faces. I did one-to-ones. I've got Ronald De Boer in my office, and Amaruso was injured at the time. I phoned him in Italy and I said, "Big man," and he says, "Hey, boss," that was his first words. And he says, "Congratulations," and I says, "Yeah, listen, I need you in this team, and you need to get fit as quickly as possible. I'm in recovery. I should be okay." And there was a break. It was a winter break, and then Amaruso came back after it, and he was a legend. He was brilliant for me and my staff. I had fantastic staff around me as well, and we tried to get the family side of the club, by interacting with everybody, the offices and things like that. So,
how was the meeting with Ronald De Boer?
Well, what I said to Ronald was, it was actually, when I say a meeting, it was probably a bit informal because at that time I was still doing warm-ups and things like that, and I would run ahead of the players, and then I would start kind of mingling, and I moved back to Ronald, and I started to talk about some of the games I'd seen him during his Ajax career, and he looked at me as if, "Oh, this guy's an anorak," and then one of the staff told me, he said, it was actually one of the masseurs, he says, "Gaffer, just to tell you, Ronald De Boer was he couldn't believe it, how much he knew about his career. Because I was talking to him about Holland games and all that as well, and a game that they played in Greece, I think it was Panathinaikos or something, and they'd lost at home in Amsterdam 1-0, but they went over there and played one of the greatest games I've ever seen, 3-0 they won, and that was the first time I saw the use of the goalkeeper being so prevalent in a football match, and Ronald, anyway, he said to the master that, "I can't believe the gaffer, he knows so much about my career," and so I think he was chuffed with that, and we just empowered him a wee bit, and Arveladze, and I knew that one of the things that foreigners didn't like was you coming in and ranting and raving at half time, and that again, that is kind of similar nowadays. There's no really big rants anymore. It's more on the analytical side, and you've got to say you could do better. You should be doing better in that situation. But there's no in your face stuff anymore. And
what about Barry Ferguson talk? How good was he? Could he play at the top? Very top.
Yeah. Alex Ferguson at that time said there was a spell when Barry was at Blackburn. Alex Ferguson said he was considering going for him.
Did he?
Aye, he told me that privately, and he definitely thought about it. I don't know if it was around about the Roy Keane time or round about when Roy left. He certainly did consider Barry. When he moved from Rangers to Blackburn, it must have been kind of in his prime. But Barry could play in any stadium in the world and not be phased. He had such a belief in himself. And
did you and him ever have a ding dong?
Aye, ding dongs, yeah, all the time. He liked to say the one FUD, I heard FUD coming, and that really got me on the sweary one against him, and then we calmed it down, And it's like Willie Miller or me with Alex Ferguson. Willie Miller, you could count in one hand the amount of times Fergie had a face-to-face with him, and me maybe 5 or 6, stacking 20. but so like Barry, I would have, and my Rangers time with him, there was maybe 2 or 3, but not. There was a ding dong in one of them, yeah, definitely when it was a big shouting match, and you remember those, but very few and far between.
Yeah, the big win for you early on was the Scottish Cup final win against Celtic. Is that as good a feeling you've had when Lovenkrands scores that winner?
Yeah, the 3-2 game. That was an incredible game. Just
a great game.
What a game! One of the best, and the quality of the two teams on the pitch. Henrik Larsson recently said that Celtic would have coped and it would have gotten the top 4 of English football. So imagine Rangers and Celtic, teams of that particular era. Both of them. If he's saying that with Celtic, then I've got to say, well, Rangers would have been neck and neck with you in that tussle if you're talking about Celtic getting to the top 4. So it was a brilliant game. We played some really good football in the game. Celtic hit us with the set piece power. John Hartson scoring, I think, the first goal, then Bobo Balde, and we had Peter scoring that phenomenal winner with 9 seconds to go. So I'll always remember the T-shirts, 9 seconds and loving it, Loven. And that was Peter's winner. But great cross for Neil McCann. Fergie's free kick was world class. And they had that capacity, that team had that capacity to come back from any setback.
Yeah. Start of the treble year, that was the next season. Did you feel confident of winning the league? As you said, Celtic had dominated under Martin O'Neill at that time. Surely you never thought a treble was possible?
No, we never really contemplated a treble. The most important thing for us was winning the league. And we knew that it was going to be neck and neck. And I think in the first game of the season, we drew at Kilmarnock and Celtic won. And I remember reading a line, I think it was the Sunday Mail, must have been the Sunday Mail, saying the league's finished. That was the first game of the season.
Wow.
Celtic had won, and we drew with Kilmarnock 1 each, and it was the league's over, Celtic have won it. And we thought, right, there's obviously a big feeling that the two teams are not going to drop many points. So we were very, very aware of that every single week. And we played on a Saturday, Celtic played on the Sunday, Celtic played on the Saturday, we played on the Sunday. And it was always neck and neck. And people say it will be decided by how the two teams got on against each other. But in the end, it wasn't. It was results elsewhere. And you total respect to every team in Scotland. You can never get an easy game.
Right. I need to ask you again, another big name that you've managed, Mikel Arteta. How pivotal was his signing in that year?
Yeah, well, Mikel was a signing on the table when I got there, and David Murray said to me, do you know this player? Dick Advocat he's part of the Barcelona excuse me, part of the Barcelona youth product. He's at PSG on loan, and Dick has, I think, been told it would cost about 5 or 6 million, I think. So I said, well, listen, we'll go and look at him. I don't want to just throw 6 million at a player that I don't really know. And Andy Watson went away to see him playing with Paris Saint-Germain, and he was a holding player with PSG. The role that he had ultimately with Everton and Arsenal. Andy went and he came back. He says, he's quite lightweight. He is a kid after all. I think he must have been, I don't know if he was 20 then or 19 or 20. He says he's quite lightweight, but he says, Alec, the difference from their football and our football is very marked. It's a marked difference. And he said that they just let them have the ball at the back and they retreat, and then they kind of start to press on about halfway line, the French teams. So Mikel was able to get the ball, make the easy pass. And Andy said as a result, he was never tested by anybody going against him and I said, well, he can't play number 6 anyway, because we've got number 6. We've got the number 6, Ferguson. So he couldn't play before in that position before Barry. That was a certainty. And Andy says, technique very good, control of the ball very good. He's got a wee burst of pace. So I decided that it was on the table, and I think we had sold, somebody left, and we got some money to counter it a wee bit. And David, I said, do you want to do it, David? I mean, is it one that we could keep the money for something else? He says, it's up to you. It's definitely there. It's Dick liked him. And I thought, right. And because of Andy's assessment, I thought, right, I'm going to take him, but he'll be in the squad. And he'll be a forward-thinking player, not a defensive-thinking player. So we brought him in, and then all of a sudden he's mingling with De Boer, he's mingling with Arveladze, Caniggia, all these forward-thinking players and very progressive players. And I thought, how can he fail with these guys? We played him the left midfield, coming in and interacting with the strikers and the other midfielders, and wandering, but always, accentuating that you've got to go back to your position when we're against the wall, or somebody else can fill in for you, and you can take his position. So he took to it, like an absolute professional, as if he'd been in the game a long time. Brilliant in the ball, coming in, but the players he was playing with just, gave him that kind of platform, because the next season was tough for him when De Boer and all these left. Barry Ferguson left for Blackburn, and then I was left with quite a young midfield. Big Stevie, remember Big Steve?
Stevie Hughes.
Big Stevie Hughes. Big Stevie was a young kid coming through. But again, as a youngsters, they've got to be allowed to make mistakes. But at Rangers level, you can't make too many, when you're playing for Rangers or Celtic, when the demands are on you to win every week.
Yeah.
But we found it a tough season. We played in the Champions League, and I had to move Arteta back to the central midfield because I was very short of technical players in there. And Stevie Hughes was obviously a decent big player. But to pit those two in the Champions League against Man United at Old Trafford was a bridge too far, and it became tougher for Mikel because he didn't have the De Boers, the Arthur Newmans, the Fernando Ricksons, the Amarussos, the Craig Moore, all these guys that could easily find him with the ball, and a lot of the players we had in that Rangers team were enforcers as well. Ferry could tackle. The other players could tackle. Arveladze could defend. Caniggia was was sensational. I just couldn't believe how good a player that guy was.
Who smoked more, him or Latapy?
Well, I was told, I know that before the game, you know, Claudio had a wee fag in the toilet, you know, and listen, if he plays to that level, you know, who am I to come despite my face, you know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Just on the treble, obviously he's won the League Cup against Celtic first. Just memories of the final day against Dunfermline and actually winning the league.
Well, again, it was that strange situation where the game was on at Rugby Park, and you know, we were trying to keep ahead of Celtic on the goals, and we built up to it the whole week saying we've got to play really fast football. If you score a goal, boys, run into the net, get it, and re-centre it. You know, and even those little seconds will make the big difference ultimately. And we were getting the score from Rugby Park. When I saw the Celtic game again, and they beat Kilmarnock 4-0, I think it was, they missed a penalty, they missed umpteen chances. Then, you know, went for us. We got enough goals to do it. Arteta's penalty at the end, and we you know, I think Martin said, which I think all managers say, is the team that wins the league deserves it. And you know, we picked Celtic on that occasion, and we scored a few goals. We probably should have had more. Stevie Thompson came on, I think, and contributed with a goal, but Stevie could have had 3 or 4.
Yeah. He was trying his best to lose it, wasn't he, Stevie Thompson?
Celtic at Rugby Park missed about 3 or 4 chances that they must have been kicking themselves about. You know, you never know what the scores could have been had everybody in each team scored. It could have been 8-3 or something for us. And Kilmarnock, I think, did they miss a penalty? I can't remember. But Celtic gave them a drubbing. We gave them Fairman a drubbing. But we ended up winning on the goal difference.
What a feeling to win the league with Rangers as manager.
Oh, well, that was just a sensational moment in my life. Growing up as a young player, a young school player, my dad was Rangers, my mother's side was Celtic, but you know, there wasn't a bigoted bone in anybody in our family, and we respected. My dad always said that, and as a young boy, see if Celtic beat Rangers, don't get angry about it, right, ever. But you know, obviously some of the pals you grow up on either sides, then you know, I kept wondering about the ferociousness of these guys, you know, and I just couldn't understand it. But you know, when you get to that level and you actually see in the both camps, then it's pretty sensational. Anybody that goes to that derby, they always come out of it saying, "I've never seen anything like it."
Yeah. I need to ask you, Alex.
Yeah.
That's 2 trophies won. Did you realise at the time how much the boys had been out drinking that week before the cup final?
No.
When did you find out? Was it after the game or was it before the game?
No, I never found out anything before the game. You know, I felt that probably they'd have, you know, the first couple of days, you know, the day after, and then we get back to work again, and they trained all week. I never must have been too naive, you know, and not realising that. Well, if that was the case, is that in somebody's book?
No, I think a few boys that have came on here says that they took it a wee bit too far that week.
Aye, yeah. Well, thank goodness
you never found it.
Well, thank goodness they won the final game, and because you know it wasn't an easy game against Dundee.
Dundee, wasn't it?
Dundee, yeah, Jim Duffy, I think, wasn't it? And you know, if anything, we huffed and puffed. It was probably a bit like when I go back to the day of the European Cup Winners' Cup final. We won that, and then we played maybe a few days. Wasn't it the immediate weekend? I think it was the weekend after. We played Rangers in that famous Alex Ferguson rant on the pitch. You know, when he says that was a terrible result, a terrible performance, and And then when he realised they must have been really tired. But I can assure you, we weren't out in the piss all week.
Yeah.
We weren't having drinks. We maybe did for a couple of days, but luckily enough, the cup final was the next week.
Right.
But the Rangers treble winning day was then, and then the week after was Dundee. So they got through it anyway, and it could be a more sensational story if we'd lost it.
Just you said the league was sensational, one of the best feelings. What did that feel like when you knew you'd won the treble as a Rangers manager?
Be standing there doing a treble. My dad died in 82. It would have been incredible for him to see me lifting those trophies, but my mother was still here, and my family, and I just felt so privileged to have been able to do something like that in my life, along with my great staff, Andy Watson, the Jan Wouters, Ian McGuinness, the Doc, and then all my masseurs, and Davey, the whole staff and the administration staff at Ibrox. We had a brilliant family, and I think when everybody comes together, then you've got a good chance.
Yeah. That summer, big challenge you faced, the loss of club captain Barry Ferguson, number 6 as you call him. Did he come to you and tell you that he wanted to leave?
I think it might have been between Souness and Sir David, but it says, what are you going for? We need guys like yourself. And whether he saw that there was going to be a wee decline, and there might have been more pressure on him, and seen that Blackburn were maybe amassing a team or whatever, for whatever reason, I don't know. But David and Souness had Graham Souness was manager then, wasn't he?
Yeah, Souness took him, yeah.
Yeah. And that was really a deal that I couldn't interfere in.
Yeah. Were you devastated to lose him? Obviously,
I think it was a time when Rangers were, having to look at the finances. That was kind of, I could see that was the real start of it. That was the real start.
Yeah. See, we'll move to helicopter Sunday. How crucial was the re-signing of getting Barry Ferguson back the following season, 2004-2005? Was it you did you phone Barry and say, I want you back?
Yeah, we got when he wanted to come back, and so right away, on the blower, and we said it's great and we think we can do it, and he said, that'd be great. I just want to get back there. You know what Barry's like, I want to get back to Rangers, Gaffer. And we did some good signings in that January, but we'd also did some tremendous work in the previous summer to get Dado Pricho and Jean-Alain Boumsong. And that was brilliant preparation, because the year before, after we won the treble, we brought in too many players 3 weeks before pre-season started again, and there was a lot of players that were towards the end of their careers, great players, but it just didn't work for us.
Yeah.
And we had a barren season. David kind of recognised it, Sir David, and he said, you didn't get a great hand of cards last season, and he says, we'll go again, and we'll try and prepare better. To get those two players in at the beginning was fantastic for us, and we, again, the season, the to and fro between us and Celtic before Helicopter Sunday was just a marvellous fight again, a marvellous battle.
Yeah. Fernando Rickson was the club captain, and then Barry came back. You decided to stay with Fernando. Was that an easy decision or a hard decision? No,
it was. I was honest up front with Barry, and I said to him, look, I'm just going to keep it as it is. Fernando deserves this recognition. It's helped him to calm down, Barry. He's no chance of him getting sent off anymore. He's more of a Kofi Annan, a peacekeeper. It was amazing to see Rickson running to the referee and trying to hold players back, saying, "No, don't be stupid," and going, and they're all looking at him, going, "What? You're telling me that?" Fernando would have been right in amongst that, getting red cards and stuff. But he became, very, very cool and commanding and in control of his emotions, which was unusual. But Fergie came in, knuckled down, got right back into his confident persona, and then to go and do what we did at the end was amazing.
What have you got a favourite memory of Fernando Rickson, Alex?
Too many to mention. When the doc told me that he pushed one of the directors into the swimming pool when we were over in Greece, just for a prank and a laugh. When the director had his phone in his pocket and he's
the checkbook.
No recommended, Fernando. Sorry, I need to have a word with you about that one. And to be fair, and the director, he said, "Nah, just leave it. We'll put it under the carpet." We sent Fernando to apologise, but there was great stories with Fernando as well. He was a great little character.
You were beaten by Celtic at Ibrox 4 games to go, 5 points adrift. Was there ever a feeling that the league was lost?
Yeah. Well, when you think Celtic are 5 points in front and just beating you in your own ground, then that is a bitter blow. And we could only keep going. And then we got a breakthrough when we were going up to Aberdeen, and Celtic lost at home to Hibs. Remember that game?
Yeah.
You remember the result? Celtic lost at home to Hibs, and we went to Aberdeen to play on the Sunday. So the players were all listening like ghouls on the radio. And I hated listening to games on the radio if it was a game that could affect us. And I thought, why you guys are being ghouls listening to that? If Celtic beat Hibs, which they should, then we'll all be sitting in this bus feeling ridiculously low and not ready for the Aberdeen game. But no, they listened to it, and then I said, turn it down. And so they were doing the earphones, and then I heard the cheers, and Celtic had lost that home game, which gave us a chance to shorten the gap. We went to Aberdeen and duly won.
How big for keeping morale up when you think you're low is Marvin Andrews? Was he shouting it? Was he telling you God was going to save it? Was it believe? He kept saying.
Believe was his favourite word, and he just walked through the dressing room with a fist, believe, and we all laughed at it, but he's right, he was right in terms of the word itself was believing. I mean, it was in Celtic's hands, so. Really, what we had to do and what we did emphasise was, listen, you've just got to keep winning your games, because if Celtic slip up, then you'll be tossing and turning for the rest of your life in your bed thinking, if only we had won those games. So we did really well in sense of getting those victories, and that was what kept us in the game. Celtic were hot favourites, and we took it to that last day again, the wire, which was one of the most spine-tingling days I've ever had.
What was that? Was that your favourite day in management? Would you say?
It was the biggest spine-tingler. Winning the treble was something that I could only have dreamed about. The way we won this one was phenomenal. And when we at half time, Barry was a bit low in the Hibs game. We were 0-0 and Celtic were a goal up at Fir Park, and that was it. The league was over, but it was only half time. And I said, "Good." I said, "Barry, come on, you got to help me to rally these boys. They can't all go out with their shoulders hunched and the heads down. You've got to go out in that second half, sprint out that tunnel. You're going to win this game. And even if Celtic don't drop the points that we need them to, then you can say that you fought right to the end with honour and you won the game. If they do drop points and you don't win it, I'm telling you, you will not be able to live with yourself.
Yeah.
And I'd had those experiences, I had a lot of the guys in the team, but so Fergie's, he's all of a sudden he's aroused and he's into them all. And come on, boys, you've got to win it, just win the game, get that goal. And then we Nacho made the breakthrough. Buffalo made the pass, and Nacho got the all-important goal. And then fast forward, a few minutes, or I don't know how many minutes later, Hibs were sitting in because they knew if they lost a second goal to us, they would have lost out in goal difference to European.
Yeah.
So it was a strange one, and I was a bit worried with Big Marvin and Kyriakos keeping the ball at the back, was not the prettiest sight watching passing no square and something's going to happen, there's something for the worst is going to happen. And then Marvin goes and does a amazing up the front, and it's, what are you doing, Marvin? What are you doing? Get back there. And believe it when I say it. Just one of your words. And then so he said, hey, boss, they opened up, and I said, yeah, just stay back. Says everybody else is going forward. We've got wingers, we've got full-backs going forward, and you need to keep that solid centre base. And then the big roar went up.
Is that when you knew when the roar went up, or was somebody telling you on the side?
No, the roar went up, and nobody said anything to the side. I never heard anything to the side, and that's what made it so special, because just the phenomenal roar, and I knew Motherwell had scored, but the shivers that went down my back I've never experienced anything like that in my life, and that was a thrill in 5 second bursts of roaring. The Rangers fans, for me, have never made a louder noise in their whole careers as fans.
Yeah.
And so I knew it was one each, and they got who was it? Got we guy joined Celtic, wasn't it?
Scott McDonald.
Scotty ended up getting the 2 goals, but that goal was the one that gave me that sensation. When the second roar went up, then I knew we'd done it, and it wasn't as so sensational as the first or the first feeling, but that was the one where I knew we've done it.
Never as good the second time. Did you celebrate with the boys after it?
Yeah, I think I did a piece for the Dubai Rangers club last week, and I did have a couple of friends that came back and celebrated, stayed in the house overnight, and he actually runs. He's on the committee of Dubai Loyal, one of my pals who came back that night. We celebrated. What happened? We went back, and I think there was an impromptu party. I don't think there was nothing organised per se, but we made our own party.
Yeah, last week on Rangers, Alex, the next season you became the first Scottish team to qualify for the last 16 of the Champions League. Again, another massive achievement that you had at Rangers.
Well, that was a good achievement for a different reason. In that we really struggled in the league that season. We had a lot of injuries. Big Dado was out for a while, and we struggled. Hearts won the first 10 games in a row. I mean, they went on fire. They were really good.
Yeah.
The first team to beat them, I think, was Celtic. Yeah, we lost at Tynecastle 1-0, and we just struggled. And because, as I said to you, Rangers Celtic fans expect their teams to win every week. I didn't try and play counter-attack on anybody in the Scottish League. I tried to win all the games, and we just didn't have that quality at the time. We were playing a lot of younger lads. There was different young players coming through. But when it went to the Champions League, I knew I wasn't under so much pressure. So I played it more tactical. I played it more like counter-attack that way, or, you know, if you like, park the bus sometimes. And then, you know, let's hope we've got a wee bit of quality to get through this group stage. And we played some good games into Milan in a closed-door game. That was a bit like the modern-day football, COVID-19. No fans in the ground. And except there was some fans from the Rangers directors, and you know, they made a hell of a noise behind me. Like Andy Smiley and all these guys. And then we got into it at home, and of course Peter Lovencraft's gone through on a Thomas Buffel pass, scoring the equaliser was the one that I think cemented us for the last 16. But we went to Porto, and young Ross McCormick gets the equaliser, and that was a sensational result to go to Porto and keep them at bay for 90 minutes, and to get that one each draw over there was the one that was the nail in their coffin.
Yeah. Despite that difficult season, as you say, finishing third in the league, did you feel it was just the right time to leave Rangers? Did you achieved everything you could?
Yeah, I said to David when we qualified for the last 16 that I would go there and then.
Did you?
Yeah. And he said he obviously had to think about it, and he come back and he says, no, he said, I can think of no one else to lead that team out against Villarreal other than you. He says, I want you to stay at the end of the season. And I knew the process was a new manager, and it's quite a strange thing for Scottish football. Normally you'd see that in European football that managers are earmarked like 9 months ahead or 6 months ahead. You know a German team, Bayern Munich, will know, for instance, that Guardiola's coming in 6 months after this manager's tenure finishes at the end of it. And so David and I had that agreement, and Martin Bain was chief exec, and you know, we were all pretty close, and I agreed that I would leave at the end of the season. My shelf life was up, and it's on to something else.
Brilliant. Just last wee bit on Scotland, Alec. Was managing the national team always something that you quite fancied?
When they came for me the first time, I kind of thought that it was too young for me, too early. But when I got asked the question, it was a different matter. I just couldn't say no. And apart from my kind of thinking that, nah, I'm too young. And then when they actually made the phone call, I thought, oh, you're Scotland manager? Oh, that's incredible. Yes, of course. You know, so
you did, yes, straight away, did you?
Yeah, I did. I couldn't say no. It's just when you probably don't think you're going to get the call, and that's why I was maybe a little bit calm in terms of saying, nah, it's too early for me. And then when they did come, then I said, oh, yeah, absolutely, no problem.
Yeah. A lot of the players that we've had on had said that they loved going away in Scotland back then, and it was like a club atmosphere. Was that something that you wanted to create? Yeah,
that was very uppermost in my thinking, and we tried to keep it like that. We had a good run, really good run. It's just, you know, disappointing game after we'd beaten Ukraine. We went to Georgia and lost, and you know, again, many managers have probably done it. Pep Guardiola will probably be looking at the last Champions League when he didn't play Mahrez and two of the other technical geniuses, and they were put out the European Champions League by, was it Lyon?
Yeah.
So I can go back to the and I kept faith with the guys that played against Ukraine, and instead of maybe changing a few legs a wee bit, you know. But we did lose unpredictable goals, you know. For us to lose at a set piece when we had the height and strength in there, and it wasn't like us. So, but maybe there was a little bit of, the guys being a wee bit tired, because they were doing it again. And these are the ones you go back and say, well, if I had a chance of doing that again, I'd change the team.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was done, and we knew we had to beat Italy at Hampden to qualify. Not draw, obviously not lose, but to win the game, we would have qualified, and we were one.
Never a foul either. It's never a foul on Panucci, is it?
Never a foul. It was something that fouled Alan Hutton.
Yeah.
And Panucci scored. Was it Panucci? The foul was on as well. He got the winner. He scored the winner.
Scored, yeah.
But we played a great game that day, and Barry Ferguson was tremendous. And when you compared him and Pirlo that day, Pirlo was playing, and I was looking at Pirlo and I'm thinking, oh, this guy must be near the end of his career. But he was only blooming starting it.
Right.
Because it went on for about another 10 years, and I thought, Barry really pile drive them in the midfield. And I thought Barry's put that guy in the shade. But the Italians, they're so dangerous. They still get that final goal, and even one each wouldn't have been enough.
You've talked about spine tingling. I need to ask you that night, Part the Prince, James McFadden's goal goes in. There must have been a few tingles that night.
Yeah, that was amazing as well. Paul Hartley played that night, and he played in front of the back four. I think it was Bruni, Scott Bruni maybe even playing. And we had Faddy up front on his own, and we knew there was two. They were playing a 4-4-2 rather than a holding player. They normally had Makelele in a holding role, but they played Makelele and Big Arsenal centre midfielder. Yeah, those two in a straight four. So we were able to put Darren Fletcher and who's our other midfielder? Barry playing that night, yeah.
I can't remember, probably.
We must have said to them, you two can actually play against them, because there's no sitter and James could pick up the pockets between. And so we were able to kind of go in high on them a wee bit and stop them playing. If they'd have played a 4-3-3, it might have been more difficult for us. But Hartley and the defence were supreme, they were fantastic. And then, of course, when James picked up that shot from 30 yards, then you're thinking... Are you
screaming at him for hitting that, Alex? Are you going mad at him for shooting for that?
No, I would never go mad at him. He'd done, because anything he did, you just let him do it, because James could do the unorthodox, and to pick the ball up there. And I never said no, don't shoot, but whenever a player takes a chance to shoot from that distance, then invariably it goes past the post. It's an easy save for the goalkeeper. But it was great accuracy in it by James. And if you think about his particular campaign, only he could have done that. Yeah.
Would that have been your favourite memory as your first stint as Scotland manager?
Yeah. And that of course is one that sticks out. The Ukraine game was fantastic at Hampden, right enough. When we beat Ukraine 3-1. They had a lot of really good top players playing for them, and the way we dominated that game was just a real professional job.
Return for a second stint. How do you look back on how things panned out? It was more of an experimental year for me, and I tried to experiment with as many players as I could. And watching Gordon's campaign, he was very close, and I knew a lot of the players that were playing up front for him were starting to get injured, and I wouldn't have them in the early games. And so I tried new players, and I think I was entitled to do that. And you just want a bit more understanding. We lost to Costa Rica, and Ollie McBurney had 3 or 4 chances. He could have cemented his career,
like Lyndon Dykes has done, scored very early in his cap, being cap for Scotland. Ollie could have got away to a flyer, and he did for some chances, and we spoke about it afterwards. We analysed it, and he agreed, and he still not scored that elusive goal. And so in the striker department, we have toiled a wee bit. And then the centre halves, I looked at centre halves. I know big Christophe Berra was still about, but I phoned a couple of them and said, "Look, guys, I'm going to have a look at some other players. You don't have to come in this South American tour when we play against Mexico and Peru. I want to look at as many options as I can." A lot of names the press had flagged up as well, and then ultimately, if I don't get results, it's my fault anyway. But they've been recommended, and I'd seen a lot of the players in action, and we tried to play as many as we could to see if we could get a group that would stick out and also be a nucleus of picks for the foreseeable future. And then we started the competition games. We played that little mini group against Albania, and I end up with a 66% record in competitive games. But everybody loves a statistic. But the games that you looked at are the ones that you lose in, and Kazakhstan was a wee bit of a nightmare for us. But we obviously, if you look at the team the teams that played in the November before when we qualified for the Nations League, there was 6 changes, so it was difficult to get the consistency. And Stevie Clark's a great coach, and he's done well in the recent games, and let's hope we can continue the momentum. Big Dykes has started pretty well, and maybe Ollie Burnley can give him some competition.
Think you should have been given longer though, Alex?
To be fair, I wasn't the most comfortable I've ever been in a job, because there was a frustration. There was a frustration over the whole year and a half with losing players through injury. You have to get all this fitness for duty kind of pre-phone calls, and we got all these amber flags, flagged up and saying, "Look, he's got a wee doubt. This guy needs an injection. That one needs this. He needs this," and to try and get that consistency of selection was very difficult.
Last question. You looking to get back in it? I think you can still do it.
Well, it's a game of hard knocks, and you look over a period of 15 or odd years, then there's been a lot of firefighting there. There's Aston Villa coming and reduce the wage bill by a considerable amount, but keep us in the Premier League. Right, okay. Birmingham was very similar. We weren't a club that would spend a lot of money, so trying to get a team that you could build for the future, difficult. We had a great wee team the year we finished 9th in the Premier League. Barry Ferguson was part of that one. I was able to build that the year before. I think preparation is the big thing, as we proved that year at Rangers when we got the big pre-show in advance and boom song in advance. We had them in the January before the season started, whereas the previous season we were buying players 2 weeks before pre-season was beginning, and that is a big factor. But so as you can ask me if I'm coming back in, if maybe Man City said, "Alex, listen, Pep's going to take a wee break, would Latapy come in and we'll give you millions of pounds to spend and buy the best players in the world," I would maybe take that. Gerard Houllier once said to me, I visited him in Lyon, and they'd won the title 3 times, and he'd some team. And I said, "Do you still get nervous in the dugout or the technical area, Gerard?" He says, Oh yes, of course, he says, but it's less of a problem when you have the players on that pitch you can trust. So I've had a few good teams, I've had a lot of success, and I thank all these players that have helped me do that, and all my staff. If I could get a wee number backstage to help a young manager, a sport director, I think I could do that job standing on my head.
Brilliant. Alex, what a hero. Thanks very much.
That's a pleasure, buddy.
Top man, I appreciate it.